Yeah. Contrary to a family legend, and if I can nix it here, let's do it. I was not a masked wrestler. I did not get thrown around the ring by The Rock or anybody else. I did get to meet a lot of the wrestlers, which was really cool. But I was an IT professional for them. I was really, that was when I did a lot of the help desk and some of the junior admin work that I did. So it was pretty early in my career. Um, but I was always there, help desk support for these wrestlers while they were on the road 320 days a year, which credit to them. I'm away from my family for a couple of months, and when I'm doing jobs for the government, and that's really hard. I cannot imagine being away for a whole year, going from place to place to place. But my work there was a lot of phone support because, as I said, they were calling me from the road. But I did get to meet a lot of wrestlers. I got to meet the McMahons, which was really a lot of fun. Uh, I almost got one of my interesting stories as far as meeting wrestlers. Um, I was in the executive area, which is where like the CEO and et cetera, excuse me, will work, and they'll deal a lot with the wrestlers. The wrestling talent, at least when I was there, was separate from the regular workers, uh, just because very different aspects of the company. But I was up there trying to actually help Vince McMahon's secretary with a technical problem. And as I'm walking down the hall, I'm looking at this manual, and all of a sudden, it was like the lights went out. And I'm like, my first reaction was, did we lose power? And I look up, and there's the Undertaker walking towards me, also not looking where he was going. And that would have been painful for me. So I was able to easily sidestep him and continue what I was doing without getting run over.
Hello, and welcome to the Cybrary podcast. My name is Jen Barnaby, and I'm one of the course managers here at Cybrary. And today I'm so excited to welcome one of our instructors, Corey Holzer. Corey is an instructor in IT and network security, and he holds a PhD in information security. He's worked in network and security and web development for years. He holds the CISSP or CISP, the CRISC certification, and in the past, he's held the CEH, the CNDA, and Security Plus. Welcome, Corey. So glad to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jen. Glad to be here.
Cool. So we've been having different instructors on the pod lately and just asking about their background, how they got into the field, and having them talk about some of their courses that they've done here at Cybrary. So I just wanted to start with that and see if you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into IT and cybersecurity.
Well, thank you for being so kind. It's only saying I've been in it for years, when you could say decades. I probably got into cybersecurity before even it was a word or a term that we used. Um, 30 years of IT experience, and God, that sounds like I'm old, but hey, it's what it is. I started in the early 90s, started out as most IT guys do. I started out in break fix and help desk work. And then I transitioned into being a systems administrator. And I had my first experience with cybersecurity in a really unusual way. I remember I was getting ready for work one day, and I had just set up our enterprise mail system. And as I'm listening to the news, as I always did in the morning, there was a report that came out about a virus that they had discovered. And the interesting thing with it was it would be sent via email. And when the person triggered the virus, it would read the first 15 or 20 email addresses in their address book and send it to those people as well. And it would propagate that way, which was pretty unique for the time. Probably pretty mundane today, but it was what it was at the time. So I quickly emailed the entire distribution list for the company and said, be careful, don't open this. And by the time I got into work, there was one of the executives was standing by my door and said, I just wanted to thank you, because if I hadn't read your email about 30 seconds before I opened a letter from one of my clients, I would have triggered the virus because I would have just trusted it as if it was from them. And it was a really good feeling, of course. I had done my job, but it also made me realize that we were starting to see this environment where people were going to be malicious. I don't quite remember the virus name to remember what else it did, but I remember I very distinctly remember the mindset that I was now responsible not only for protecting the network but the users, and it really hit home for me. And from there, getting into web development, where you're starting to deal with people's PII, personally identifiable information, and the like, I took a very serious attitude about making sure that that stuff was safe. And that's really what launched me into being a cybersecurity individual,
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think it's interesting too that you sort of checked your email and all that stuff even before you went into work, and I wonder if that's sort of, something that you naturally do even now, kind of always staying on the edge of things, trying to make sure you know what's happening, and, it's kinda hard to keep up with everything.
It's definitely hard, but one of the things I do, and I suggest this as I mentor junior cyber professionals, is listen to the podcasts, not just Cybraries, but others out there, because I've actually, it's interesting in my line of work right now, working with the government. I go into morning briefings with senior executives, and they're always ready to say, "Hey, I heard about this. What can you tell me?" And you can't sit there with a dumb look on your face, not being able to answer that question. So by listening to podcasts in the morning as I'm heading to work, or even maybe for the reading the news just before I go into that meeting, I'm at least somewhat prepared for that surprise question, and I don't look dumbstruck when they ask it. And they
Mhm.
appreciate that. That builds that level of trust that's just so important in our field.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was your upcoming course. We're getting ready to publish for you, Linux hardening, and in it, you provide some theory on why we harden and things like that, but you also provide a lot of practical information about how to do that, how to harden the services in the system, and user administration and all that, and provide some demos and some labs. And I wonder if you bring some of your personal experience into that where you're thinking, this is, sort of the kind of thing that I wish I had had when I was learning this type of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we didn't have as many mentors as we can have today, and I think that's a great thing. I think it's an important thing for everybody, even a guy with 30 years experience. I still have my mentors that I can bounce ideas off of and talk through problems with. And I try to bring my experiences to my lessons, because I really believe in an old saying. It says, "The wise man learns from his own mistakes. The wiser man learns from the mistakes of others." So if other people can learn from my experience as a 30-year IT professional and cyber professional, that may help them avoid something that I literally bumped my head on, if you want to, use a euphemistic term, and learn the hard way. If they can learn it a little bit easier, that's all the better.
Yeah, and you are so great about, putting real scenarios into your courses. Coming up with, you know, putting the person right in the scenario, whether they're about to do a lab or just even in some of the questions, your challenge questions in your courses. And I love that about your courses because a lot of this stuff that we teach at Cybrary is, really theory, and it's just a lot of information sometimes, and giving learners the ability to sort of tie that to a real situation, I think is really helpful, and they can think about how can they apply it maybe in their current job or in, where they want to go to in cybersecurity. So I think that's really, really awesome. You were talking a minute ago about, when you got started in cybersecurity and stuff like that. And I know that you happen to work for the World Wrestling Foundation. And I wanted to know if you'd talk a little bit about that. And I don't know what you did for them. I don't know if you can talk about that or if that was anything related to IT and cybersecurity. But it just sounded like a really interesting time for you.
Yeah. Contrary to a family legend, and if I can nix it here, let's do it. I was not a masked wrestler. I did not get thrown around the ring by The Rock or anybody else. I did get to meet a lot of the wrestlers, which was really cool. But I was an IT professional for them. I was really, that was when I did a lot of the help desk and some of the junior admin work that I did. So it was pretty early in my career. Um, but I was always there, help desk support for these wrestlers while they were on the road 320 days a year, which credit to them. I'm away from my family for a couple of months, and when I'm doing jobs for the government, and that's really hard. I cannot imagine being away for a whole year, going from place to place to place. But my work there was a lot of phone support because, as I said, they were calling me from the road. But I did get to meet a lot of wrestlers. I got to meet the McMahons, which was really a lot of fun. Uh, I almost got one of my interesting stories as far as meeting wrestlers. Um, I was in the executive area, which is where like the CEO and et cetera, excuse me, will work. And they'll deal a lot with the wrestlers. The wrestling talent, at least when I was there, was separate from the regular workers, uh, just because very different aspects of the company. But I was up there trying to actually help Vince McMahon's secretary with a technical problem. And as I'm walking down the hall, I'm looking at this manual, and all of a sudden, it was like the lights went out. And I'm like, my first reaction was, did we lose power? And I look up, and there's the Undertaker walking towards me, also not looking where he was going. And that would have been painful for me. So I was able to easily sidestep him and continue what I was doing without getting run over. But it was definitely a great experience. I actually also got to meet I got to meet a lot of the other wrestlers as well. In my role, I actually did get to interface more with them. But it was a lot. It was about 15 months working there that I wouldn't trade for anything, especially since my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, who were 9 and 5 at the time, thought I was a rock star
Mhm.
because I brought them home T-shirts, autographs, pictures, all those kinds of things. Got to take them to some of the wrestling events in New York. So to them, I was a rock star. So that was a lot of fun because I loved the two of them. We're still very close. I don't think because of that, but I have a special relationship, and that's something we throw up every once in a while, just get mentioned while we're chatting about, reminiscing. It'll be like, I remember when you were at the WWF and blah blah blah. So it was an experience I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, I can see how, even wrestlers need IT support sometimes. So, I can see how that would be important. And do you have sort of an elevator speech, sorry, that you give to people when you try to explain what you do, since, not everybody really understands cybersecurity and that type of thing?
Well, I usually okay. Let me see. Don't time me on this, because I like to talk. If you can't
Yeah, I
tell.
can tell.
Um,
I know you like to talk.
no, but my 30-second pitch is really about um, creating a secure environment where they can work, where they can have the confidence that the adversaries that we read so much about are being at least kept at bay. Um, I know one of the tough things that I always try to mentor junior cyber professionals and junior IT people in is, to some degree, it's a thankless job. The reality of it is when everything is working the way it should be, everyone thinks we have an easy job.
Mhm.
When all the plates that we're spinning start falling down, i.e., server outages, cyber attacks, what have you, they think we're the biggest bum in the world because why are these things happening to us? Thankfully, more often than not, people think I have a really easy job. I think with the news cycles that we have today, where there's constantly reports, whether it's solar winds or some other hack, people do appreciate the job we as professionals do more because they know they're not at risk. I can tell them with confidence our network is safe. We do need you to be mindful of, these kind of warning signs. And I think what helps too, and what I always suggest to people is, we're not, while we have our expertise, we're not smarter than the people we work with. Deal with them on that level. Uh, the disaster I see more often than not is people in my profession who kind of talk down to the user. And there's no place for that.
Mhm.
There really isn't. Showing the respect both ways, they have confidence in you, and they know that you're being respectful to them as a professional.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask you about that because, I whenever we kind of work on your courses together, you kind of have a formal way of teaching, and I always think of you as Professor Holzer, because of your PhD and everything. But then when we have our weekly calls with all of our subject matter experts and the other instructors and stuff like that, you always really come out of your shell, and I can tell that you enjoy talking with other people in your field, and you guys have a really good rapport. And I know you've talked before about wanting to work more with the defensive guys, the offensive guys on our team, and also Nick Marintic, who we just did a podcast with recently. And I just wonder, if it seems like you guys have a real good camaraderie, and I wondered if you might talk a little bit about what that's like, and what you look forward to working with those guys and stuff like that.
Well, I'll be honest, this field is so broad, and Jen, you know it from working with all the different SMEs, subject matter experts we have here, that no one can be an expert on everything. We can all try to be, and I've dabbled in a lot of different things throughout my career, like you mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
Uh, but I trust these people for their experience. And the thing that I love doing, especially with our defensive and offensive experts, is saying, "Well, you're talking about that offensively. This is what I would do defensively, or what I would think from a net ops perspective. I need to be concerned about. What are you doing on defense to protect me?" And it becomes that kind of round robin, playing devil's advocate against each other, that really creates a lot of synergy. And I enjoy that because someone's going to mention something that somebody else, or like for myself, I didn't think of. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to add that to my course. I've got to talk about that because if I didn't think about it, my students aren't thinking about it, or the learners are not thinking about that.
Mhm.
So it's important to me to try to give them a holistic approach to the learning, because if you get so focused and you get tunnel vision almost, with regards to what you need to do, you're not going to be as effective at your job. Wargaming, for lack of a better term, is really important in what we do because it keeps the mind open, and it keeps you uh, flexible to adjust and adapt to whatever challenges are going to come, because the adversary is going to come up with something that you didn't expect.
Right.
But if you're talking about it with your peers, you might actually be able to be proactive instead of reactive.
Right. Yeah. Like you guys are always talking about that, and how, if you're not thinking like the adversary, then you're not going to be a really good defender. And, 0 day attacks happen because people aren't thinking about how they could happen. So I can see how it really helps to sort of play off of each other, and kind of see things from each other's point of view and stuff like that. So it's really great to listen to you guys talk every week. So I'm really glad that I get to kind of be a fly on the wall there.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, so you've taught other courses for us: Foundations of Virtualization, the MS 900, Microsoft 365 Fundamentals course. And I know you've done like a physical security course for end users and that type of thing. Um, and you obviously got a few different types of certifications, and I wanted to ask you about the one you got most recently, your CRISC certification, because I know you had a little bit of fun taking that test online, and I thought it might be interesting for listeners to hear what that experience was like. A little bit of a heart attack for you there, and what you went through, and maybe learned some lessons. Like you said, learn your lessons so they can be wise if they go into an online certification test.
Yeah, taking a certification exam in a physical location is stressful enough, uh, and because they control the environment, it's it's understandable things they do. You have to lock away your phone. You can't have anything on you, papers or otherwise. I mean, Heck, I even take my wallet out, I throw it in the locker. I make sure that there's nothing on me that they can say in some way I might have cheated. Uh, and because I have enough confidence in myself that I'm going to do well in the exam. When you take it virtually, thanks to the pandemic and what it has forced us to do, I will say that it's gone to the next level to make sure that we aren't doing anything as test takers where we might cheat. So it started off right from the beginning. Hold up where they check your ID in a testing center. It's hold up your ID to the camera. No, we can't read it. Do it again. Do it again. Okay, we got it clear. Now we need a picture of your face so we know that you are actually the one taking the test. Okay. Now we need to know you're not cheating. Okay, take the camera on your computer, and thankfully I was using a laptop, and do a 360 view of the room. We want to see floor to ceiling. We want to see every nook and cranny. Uh, that TV, can you cover it? It's not on. We don't care. Cover it. Okay, cover the TV. Show us take a picture of the desk. Well, I'm not sitting at a desk. I'm sitting on my couch because I don't have a desk in this apartment. What do you mean you don't have a desk? I don't. Can we just move on? Okay, show us where the computer is sitting. So I tilt the camera over and show them my legs. Well, it's a laptop. What do you expect? And this all goes on. Show us. Make sure lift up your sleeves. Although I was wearing a short sleeve shirt, so that was pretty good. Show us your arms front and back. Okay, and I knew why they did that. I'll take a step out here. Sidestep for a second. A friend of mine had taken a test the same way. He'd gone through that, and they wanted close-up pictures of his tattoos to make sure there was nothing in writing hidden inside the tattoos. That's how careful they have to be. And I get it. I understand it. The heart attack actually came at the end of the exam. I know you know this. I'd gotten through the 150 questions, which took me about a little under 2 hours, and they give you 4 hours for the exam. And as I'm getting ready to go back and review a few of the questions that I just wanted to double check, I lose my internet connection.
Oh my
Now, of
gosh.
course, that internet connection is critical because, well, one, it's the only way you can answer the questions, but also if you're disconnected for a while, they're going to wonder about it.
Yeah.
So I got it resolved in less than 5 minutes. But then the message comes up and says, we're ready to start your exam.
Oh no.
And I just had, I must have had a deer in headlights look. And they were like, go through the whole process again. I said, that's okay. I understand this. But if they're going to make me start from question one, I'm going to reschedule this because I was already mentally exhausted. And thankfully, they actually linked me right back up to exactly where I was. So there wasn't a problem. I checked those few questions, and I basically said to myself, if I go back and start changing answers, and this is actually an important tip to anybody taking any test, no matter what the environment, be careful, because as much as you can feel you're changing wrong answers to right answers, you could very easily be changing right ones to wrong ones. Be confident in what you put down the first time. Trust yourself. So I took that advice, my own advice. I hit submit. I went through a couple of surveys. I'm like, please just tell me how I did, but you have to answer these surveys. And I hit the final, I hit submit on the last survey, and they said, are you really sure you want to exit? And I was like, well, I can't go back now. Submit, you passed. And it was just elation. But
Yeah.
it is a very challenging experience. I would tell anybody who's preparing to take their first certification remotely, just be prepared. Don't fight them on it. This is the process.
Mhm.
And it's, and ultimately, don't let it frazzle you, because it's going to throw you off your game, and you're going to miss some easy questions because you tried to rush. Any of that checking doesn't count against your time. So just enjoy, get through that, deal with it, take a breather, and then read each question carefully. That's regardless of where you take it. The thing is, and I say this in my MS 900 course, I'd say this in any certification course, there are trap words in there that if you read the question too fast, you're going to miss them, and you're going to answer it the wrong way, because the quote unquote right answer for misreading the question will be there to trip you up. So take your time. If you have to, reread the question. I don't know how many times I reread the question before I tried to answer it, because there's two good answers in most questions, and you really have to think, what is the tester really ask? What is the test question really asking? And I've had good success, as you said. I've got my CISSP, I've got my CRISC. I actually still have my CEH, my network defense architect, and my my security plus. So I keep those all going. I do enough CPEs for every one of them that I basically cover all of them every year. The maintenance fees do get a little bit expensive, but um, I will tell, because I heard this in a course, the guy's like, why don't you skip the maintenance fees and just retake the test? And I sat there and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You pay the maintenance fees, which are usually about half the price of the exam,
Yeah, those tests are
every 3
expensive.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they mean a lot. I mean, walking in with the PhD is, especially from a well-respected school like the one that I went to, is a big plus. But those certifications are usually your gatekeepers. Um, I'm not saying that the companies don't care about it. They do, because it represents the fact that you have that knowledge. They also want to see the experience to go with it, which is why a lot of these certifications now, you have to have a resume to show that you have so much experience in the field, or else they make you like an associate in that certification until you have the education. I mean, the work experience to go along with it. And that's important. Both are important to the companies now. I've seen it shift back and forth. It used to be no one cared about certifications when I started in IT, because no one really offered them. Then Microsoft came out with theirs, and if you had a Microsoft certification, it was, you walk on water. You're the person we want. Didn't matter that you didn't have the experience to go along with it. And it's shifted back and forth. And I think now is really the middle ground, where the certification organizations see it this way, as well as businesses, is that you have to have the experience with the certification, because you can be book smart, but you have to have the ability to apply the book smarts. And 30 years does that, 10 years does that, 5 years does that. It's not just, me, but it'll help. I say to anybody, yes, go out and get your certifications. You don't have to get every single one. Pick a few that you really feel are paramount to the type of work you want to do, and go from there. If you find your job is changing, or you find you want to go into a new field, look at look at another certification. There are your gold standards like CISP and CISM and CRISC and all that. Definitely look at those. Um, but you do need to pick and choose. You can't be everything to everybody. I've gone through some dynamic shifts in my career. Started out in break fix. I moved into web development. When somebody said, "Hey, you're the IT guy. You must be good. You should be good at web development. You can run the company website." Okay, I guess I'm learning web development. But even there, like I said, security was important to me. And now, being a systems engineer working for the government, I see firsthand how important security jobs are. They're never going to go away. Uh, Maybe, I mean, for me, in where I work, a government network is just such an attractive target for the adversary, that there's always going to be the work there, and they're always going to try to find ways to get past whatever defenses I put up. And in a way, sometimes it's I'm not saying it's a no-win fight, but it's definitely, it will test your patience and test your creativity. And if you like being creative, if problem solving is something you love, the cybersecurity field is definitely something for you, because there's always challenges to overcome. Don't think because you don't know the ones and zeros right now, you can learn that. I mean, my bachelor's degree and my first master's are actually, which which you didn't mention, which is okay, are in a totally different field because they are actually in government and politics.
Oh, okay.
So I've actually been able to leverage that. Just as when I was in the corporate world, I leveraged my MBA to understand business processes, which are so important to things like your CRISC and being a risk professional or cyber professional, because we can come up with the greatest solution in the world, but if it somehow detracts from the business doing business things,
Hmm.
that's not helpful. It that solution will not be implemented because ultimately the business still has to be able to function. You can't stop the business from working. You have to work with it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your MBA because I forgot to mention that. And that is really, I mean, I think that also adds to your courses because you do a really great job of kind of presenting, what is the CEO or the president, what is the top of the top executives thinking, and when they come to you as in your role, what you have to convince them of. And I know with MS 900, you talked a lot about people who might be against moving into the cloud and how you might come up against that kind of those brick walls and that type of thing. So I imagine that your MBA has informed a lot of that, and also sort of a lot of the risk management and compliance type stuff, governance type stuff that you've specialized in.
Absolutely, and I'll say too, and I hear a discussion besides cyber and all that. There's this discussion, and there seems to be this frame of mind with some cyber professionals that things like Cybrary and the certifications are enough. Advanced degrees are not as important, and it's not because I have a PhD in cybersecurity or a master's in networking, but it's I say it looking at it realistically. You're going to have to go into a room and convince a board of directors or even just the CEO that what you're telling them is very important. And if you start talking in ones and zeros, they're just going to shut you down. They're going to shut it. They're not going to listen to you. You have to be able to one, put the argument in their terms. What's the business case? That's where the MBA comes in.
Mhm.
And you have to make an argument, not because they're against you, but you're asking them to spend money. You're asking them to make changes or make some adjustments that might take away certain capabilities that they think they need. But you have to be able to explain to them, and not argumentatively, but you have to construct a business case to them that says, I'm taking away certain abilities or I'm restricting certain abilities, but in the long run, it's going to give you more security, which means someone's not going to steal your client database. Someone's not going to steal your customers' credit card numbers or PII or something like that, which is now a breach that you have to report to the whole world almost and report to your clients and lose their confidence and possibly lose their business.
Mhm.
So it's really important to be able to research, to understand, and then to be able to explain it to those who are not the subject, don't have the knowledge that you do in your area in a way that they clearly can understand and just appreciate. I had this was a very painful memory in a way. Um, I was doing web development in the first company, one of the first companies I did web development in, and they were a human resource consulting firm. And they did a lot of work with surveys and collecting information. Now, as a point of reference, this is late 90s. So the web is still new ground.
Mhm.
And some of the account people and the VPs came to me and said, we need to build something on the web to do these surveys to be more efficient. Our clients are asking for it. It's important to us. You need to help us find a solution. And I built one. And it wasn't the slickest thing in the world. I mean, the technologies today would have made it so much easier, but it was functional. It did what they wanted, gave them real-time updates to the survey questions instead of doing them annually or semi-annually. And it was going to save the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in man hours and production hours to produce these manuals or reports that they would give out to the clients.
Wow.
So my boss was so pleased with the work I had done, knew it was still in its early stages and could be improved, but still was farther than we had ever gotten before. And he's like, I want you to present this to the board at our end of year company meeting. So I did that. I walked into the room. I presented all of it. I got a small round of applause from a couple of the board members and the VPs, which was very satisfying. And then the CEO of the company said to me, he's like, the internet's a fad.
Oh, no.
Now, in fairness to the gentleman, he was in his senior years,
Mhm.
older than I am now, and he was like, "The internet's a fad, and anything I want to do, any work I want to do with my client, I can do with this pad of paper and this pencil."
Wow.
And I I had to uh, bite my tongue a bit because I was a lot. I wasn't even 30 yet at the time. So, and yeah, you can start doing the math. But one of the VPs turned to him and said, "This is what our customers is asking for. This is what our customers are asking for." He's like, "This is what they want."
Mhm.
And he kind of begrudgingly agreed. He's like, "I don't want to waste any more money than we have to." And you just saw the VPs and other board members kind of shaking their heads, going, he doesn't get it. And you will run up against that. You'll run up against the resistance.
Mhm.
Uh, I got some reassuring pats on the back after the meeting, which made me feel a lot better, obviously,
Yeah.
because they understood that I got it, and it made me feel better that they got it.
Mhm.
And but but be prepared. You're going to find your resistance. It might not be. I don't think you'll ever find that again.
Mhm.
But new cyber professionals have to be prepared for it. There are going to be people who challenge you as to why we need to spend this money, why we need to do this way, and you just need to be ready to stand up for yourself and give them a clear and concise argument. You
Mhm.
can't dazzle them with the binary of what we do. You have to be able to talk to them in the terms that mean the most to them.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and you're touching on a really important point that I think some of our previous guests have talked about where, those soft skills of communicating with people are really important, and you can't just be technical completely and not be able to communicate what you're doing to leadership or even to your users. You have to be able to have those communication skills and, like you said, talk in those terms that, the bottom line, the numbers of how much you're spending and what it's worth and what the return on investment is. So that's a really good advice there.
Yeah, I've had some practice with that one because um, my oldest daughter, again, I'm showing my age, um, but who has wanted to get into not so much the cybersecurity field, but she's like, I want to get into IT. I want to work with the computers. I want to work with the servers and understand that. And I keep telling her, I'm like, you have to understand there's still a social skill you have to have and develop, even if it's just as a help desk person or even communicating from you as the technical expert to the help desk people so they can explain it to the users.
Mhm.
It's important. And she's like, maybe I'll look for another career. I'm like, but if it's your passion, and I can honestly say for me, working in IT and computers was always a hobby of mine as a kid. I took in when I was in high school. I was taking continuing education classes at the college level to learn about computers and technology. Um, it's important that you do that. It's important to get those skills. It has been my passion. If not, like you can't. I don't think. I think everyone can tell from the way I talk about it,
Mhm.
but you have to you still it can't just be a singular focus. Like I said before, you can't have tunnel vision about what you do. You have to have a broad aperture and look at how this affects other people and what they do, how that affects what you do.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I wanted to give you a sort of a fun question. Um 'Cause I really hope that, some of the listeners can kinda get an idea about your personality and that type of thing, and I know that you enjoy, sort of the Avengers and, different superhero movies and that type of thing, and also gaming, and that type of thing. So I wanted to ask you, if you could come up with a cybersecurity superhero, what would their superpowers be?
What would they be? Well, although I'm a Marvel guy, as you alluded to, I do know DC kind of well as well. And I'd say they have one of the things they'd have to have is that ability of Cyborg to interface with all kinds of technology. That would be a must because then you're talking about a person who could probably analyze a problem and come up with a solution a lot faster than even the experts like me can, just because he has that kind of connection with them. But that person would also need to have some good social skills and have the trust of people. So I'm going to take my favorite superhero and probably say Captain America, not because of the stars and stripes aspect, although um, I respect that a lot. It's He's a good person who is very inclusive and understanding, and I think that ability to communicate to and stand up for your convictions is important again when you face people who are very resistant to what right looks like. And you have to impress upon them that it is the right thing, whether or not they feel 100% comfortable about it.
That's awesome. Maybe Marvel will take this idea you have and incorporate something. I think that's a
Okay,
really good
hold on.
one.
Let me go trademark that now. But no, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Corey, this has been great talking with you. Is there anything else you want to talk about, highlight about your course that's coming out or anything that you're thinking of working on? Just want to give you the last word here before we wrap up the podcast.
Okay. About the course, I think what people need to expect going into it is I'm going to start at a very basic level of theory, like you were alluding to, and that's important. Always look for the theory and the understanding of the why. And if you don't get the answer to that question, keep asking it. Find new ways to ask it because you need to understand the why of what we do to truly appreciate the what of how we have to execute it. Um, I look forward to making having the opportunity to develop more courses with Cybrary. Uh, I'll tell the students stick with some of these longer courses. You've got some great, intelligent people who have put them together, who put in a lot of effort, like I have. I can't count how many hours I put into the MS900 or the Linux hardening course, uh, but it was a very rewarding feeling for me. And I would also say to each of the students who take any of my courses, or even if from my answers that I've given here in the podcast, if you want to reach out to me, check out my courses. You can reach me at Holzer at Cybrary.it. Ask me anything. I might not be able to give you certain answers, but I will give you my best opinion and try to help you along the way. We all need mentors in this world, uh, about life, mentoring with life, whether it's our parents or someone else that's important to us, like parents. And we need mentors in the cyber world. It's just moving way too fast. We need that network of people, which in a way is almost more important than the networks that we manage. So, and you've got great people to get to mentor you here beyond myself. So enjoy the ride. This career is not going to bore you, and I'll end it there.
Those are great words of advice. Thank you so much, Corey. I'm so glad we could do this and look forward to everything you're going to do for us here at Cybrary. And I know the people out there that'll take your courses are really going to get a lot out of them. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, Jen. I really appreciate it. Uh, Love to share my stories if you can't tell.
I can tell. So that is it for today's Cybrary podcast. Thank you for listening. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts and find us on YouTube, Spotify, and we hope you'll join us back here next time.